Hi everyone, my name is Raleigh, and today I'm going to be discussing with you the simple and most effective way for you to reduce your negative environmental impact on the planet. Now, everyone knows about the 3 R's, right? Reduce your consumption, reuse things you've already used, and recycle things that you've used up. And while those are great and effective in their own right, they aren't in any way, shape, or form the most effective way for you to reduce your negative environmental impact on the planet. The most simple and effective way, surprisingly, is completely dependent upon what you eat. In fact, according to a study published by the Science Journal, which consisted of about 40,000 different farms and spanned 119 different countries, they found that if someone eliminates meat and dairy from their diet entirely, they can reduce their carbon footprint by more than 70%. Yeah, 70%, 7-0. That's a lot. And now, being someone from San Diego, I love carne asada tacos, so this one is a little bit difficult for me to hear. With that said though, I can't argue with the simple facts. Reducing my dairy and meat consumption will have absolutely profound impacts on the planet and reduce my negative impact entirely on the planet. So with that said, let's jump a little bit into why that is. Now, in order to not get too complicated here, let's just go back to high school biology or life sciences class. And I know we're all probably trying to forget that class, we got nothing to do with it, or we forgot about it a long time ago, but one of the themes that class taught is pretty relevant here, so let's try to go back. And that theme has to do with the fact that as food travels up the food chain, a lot of the energy that was within the food at the lower levels is lost. In fact, so much so that about 90% of the energy is lost as it goes from one level in the food chain to another. So let's use a basic example to explain this, right? Let's say a mouse eats about 100 calories worth of grain, and then a cat comes along and eats that mouse. Now, that cat wouldn't consume 100 calories worth of grain. That cat would actually only consume about 10 calories worth of grain, which means that in order for that cat to consume 100 calories worth of grain, it would either have to consume 10 mice, or that one mouse would need to consume 1,000 calories worth of grain. Now, where does that energy go, right? Where does that other 90% that the mouse ate go? And the simple answer to that is it goes to the mouse just, well, being a mouse, right? Walking around, breathing, looking for cheese, of course. That mouse spends a lot of that energy doing those various things. And because that energy is spent doing that, it loses those calories and expels that calorie or that energy in the form of heat. Now, Raleigh, what the heck does this cat and this mouse example have to do with me and my diet and how that impacts the planet? Well, let's jump into that. Let's transfer this knowledge we just learned and bring it to an example that pertains to you. So let's take what we just learned and let's apply it to you in the form of a steak dinner. So in order to have a steak dinner, you of course need to have cows, and in order to have cows, you of course need to have plants for the cow to consume, right? And very much similar to the mice in our previous example, plants aren't 100% efficient when it comes to holding on to all of the energy they receive from the sun. So for example, let's say these plants receive 100 energies, I'm going to say, from the sun, right? When a cow comes along and eats those plants, it is instead only consuming a small percentage of those original 100 energies that came from the sun. And if we take this up a level in the food chain, right, and let's say we as humans are trying to consume 100 calories worth of steak, that would mean that the cow would have to consume, let's say, 1,000 calories worth of plants, right? So you see where that inefficiency occurs, right? There needs to be 1,000 calories of the plants in order for us to consume 100 calories worth of steak. So the method or the ideology behind becoming much more efficient in the food chain and instead eating those 1,000 calories worth of plants directly means that we are putting 10 times less of a strain on the system just by eating more of a plant-based diet. And the same thing applies to dairy in the same way that applies to steak. So by removing dairy from your diet, and eating those plants directly, you're essentially putting a much smaller or less strain on the ecosystem as a whole. In fact, it's about a factor of 10, so 10 times more efficient in terms of the calories that you consume. So I don't want to just stop there. I just really quickly want to touch on the other ways in which adopting more of a plant-based diet positively impacts the planet and further reduces your carbon emissions. So really quickly, it's very well known that the production of commercial livestock requires a ton of land, and it's not the most efficiently used land. In addition to that, it requires a ton of water, and it produces a ton of methane gas, which is a nasty, stinky gas that's not necessarily good for our planet. So essentially what that means is by removing your consumption of meat and dairy, you're essentially removing yourself from the equation and putting less of a strain on the scarce resources that is our water supply. You're freeing up land that would otherwise be used for the commercial livestock industry, and instead this land can be used for other more effective or more impactful positive purposes, like, I don't know, creating an oxygen producing ecosystem, or just a regular ecosystem, in other words, or maybe even a playground for your kids. I have no idea, but in my book, it could probably be used for a lot more better purposes. And in addition to that, by reducing the land that's required for all this livestock and also the amount of livestock needed to support all the people consuming it, that means that you're reducing the amount of methane that's being pumped into our ecosystem. So by simply removing yourself from the equation and eating less meat and dairy, you're having a positive impact upon, 3 different things, aside from the simple fact that you're being much more efficient in terms of where you're getting the energy out of the ecosystem from that we touched on earlier. Now, lastly, I want to touch on this just because for me it's personally important, and that has to do with the simple fact that by not buying into consuming as much meat and dairy, you're quite frankly not buying into the meat and dairy industry in general, which has been pretty well known and documented as being somewhat shady and, having some pretty gnarly practices, right? I mean, and besides the fact, you're also not buying into the concept that you need to kill something just to stay alive, just to eat, right? You're saying, hey, I don't need to kill as many things, right? Not as many cows need to die, not as many pigs need to die, just for me to not go hungry today. And for me, I think that's personally an awesome topic that I want to touch on, is by eating less meat and dairy, not only are you having a positive impact on the planet, but you're also leading to the death of less animals, which is pretty cool in my book. So with that said, I want to wrap everything we've learned in this video so far and kind of put it on a platter for you and just show you that you don't really need to make any drastic changes to truly have a profound impact in terms of your carbon footprint on the planet. So as we kind of touched on earlier in the video, right, by reducing the amount of meat and dairy you eat or eliminating it altogether, you're essentially able to remove more than 70% of your carbon footprint on the planet. So that means by removing, let's say, half of the meat and dairy that you consume, you're essentially able to remove 35% of your carbon footprint on the planet. And again, this is coming from someone who's a total foodie. So I thought this would be a total challenge and really difficult, but it was actually quite simple. For example, let's say on a typical Friday night, I used to go and get 4 tacos and a beer. Now I instead get 2 carne asada tacos, a beer, and chips and guacamole. And you know what? I love chips and guacamole. So for me, that's not any sort of, I'm not losing anything there. It's still awesome food. I had a great night. Everything is still awesome. So again, there's multiple options. You're not losing anything by just eliminating half of the meat and dairy you consume. Some other examples of this is, like, for example, you can go to a Burger King, a Burger King of all places, and you can get an Impossible Burger, which is a plant-based burger. And I actually, I'm going out on a limb saying this, but I actually enjoy it more than the regular Whoppers. The Whoppers are really heavy and greasy, and I found that the Impossible Burger sits better, and I actually enjoy the taste much more. Another place that has this is like Carl's Jr., and I don't eat a ton of fast food. I'm just giving you simple examples that you wouldn't think of, but Carl's Jr. has a burger. I think they use the Beyond Meat burger, and that burger is pretty good. You can do the one with barbecue sauce and the onion ring. I can't remember the name of it. I think it's Rodeo Burger, and it tastes pretty dang good. And again, it doesn't feel as heavy and greasy, and I actually prefer the taste over the regular Rodeo Burger because I don't feel as bad after I eat it. It doesn't sit in my stomach. It just makes me want to go to bed and stuff like that. And again, I mean, this expands all the way into like even ice cream. There's an absolutely awesome ice cream that's plant-based. I think it's cashew milk. And it is salted caramel, and it's probably the reason why I've gained 10 pounds over the past year. It's absolutely delicious, and it just goes to show you that the plant-based diet isn't like really sacrificing anything. You're not losing taste or of the food that you would typically eat. I think even last Christmas, my girlfriend had beef Wellington, but it was vegan, and it was good. Like, it didn't taste like a typical beef Wellington, but it was pretty good. Like, I actually thoroughly enjoyed it. It was one of my favorite things that we had at our small little Christmas gathering. And, it just goes to show you that market, the plant-based market, is really booming and growing fast. And they're getting really good at making it so that you don't even notice the difference. Like, if I get a latte and get a latte with oat milk rather than regular dairy milk, it's really minimal, the difference you even notice. And sometimes like a vanilla latte with oat milk, I actually prefer more nowadays. I haven't had a latte with dairy in, I don't know, a while, years now. So again, with that, I'm gonna leave you with a simple challenge. Just try to reduce your meat and dairy consumption by 50% and let me know how it goes. I mean, honestly, it's not that big of a challenge. It's not super difficult, and you'll be shocked to actually find that you don't even notice the change being that drastic. And again, that's coming from someone who loves carne asada tacos and absolutely loves food in general. And I'm not scared to admit that I'm a total foodie and enjoy trying new restaurants and places. So please give it a go. Let me know how it goes. Let me know if there's any setbacks that you encounter, and I'm happy to talk through probably any alternatives that you might be able to find. So with that said, thank you so much for your time. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope you learn a little bit about how you can positively impact the planet and reduce your carbon footprint. And with that said, have a wonderful rest of your day, y'all, and take it easy. Oh, and don't forget to like and subscribe if you like this video. I plan to put out more videos on a variety of topics that hopefully teach you a few things here and there, or at least give us the opportunity to have some profound discussions and talk about things in a deeper manner, and maybe even learn some things together. So take it easy, have a good rest of your night or day, whatever it might be. See you guys till next time.